phenomenal job stopping the London bombings in 2005 through having these, security cameras. But again, these are these background, genuine security things that you can do that can make a difference. It's just that we would rather have the performance than the reality. We can't tolerate the notion that you'd actually do profiling. It's much better to pretend that, the 20-year-old blonde bimbo in Lycra at LAX is every bit as much as a threat as, the guy who's, chanting death to America and, traveling alone over there, but nobody would want to touch with a 10-foot pole, right? I mean, it's a very, very different thing when what you care about is the image and the performance and the narrative and not the reality. Because the reality you can get at with things like profiling. You really care about security, you make everybody bring their luggage the day before and you go through it. And you profile people on your passenger lists and you put them up against criminal lists and terrorist lists and you make them all pay with credit cards and you check the financials on all those things and see where the money goes. That's how you do it. Not with this like, ooh, go through this machine and it'll, look at you naked and that's really great. I mean, that stuff is just to give the public a false sense of security. And I think polygraphs are like that too. It's to hide behind a screening that has a more malicious intent. That's about screening by race, by sex, by culture, by class, by ideology. And then claiming, wasn't me, it was the machine, right? But it's not the machine, because the machine is not actually what's going on. What's going on is the confession leading up to the machine. And that piece is all about social control and all about the performance of selection and screening that's not about the intent that it's supposed to achieve. And in that regard, I think that it's not an effective tool. You can take it away, and you can achieve that with a very simple process, which is if you really want to catch people cheating in the FBI and the CIA, you force every one of them to give you complete financials every year. And you have people who are full-time forensic accountants. And you see, I mean, people aren't, there are a few people who are going to be out there doing stuff because of ideology. And there are other ways to look at them. But, even Al-Qaeda is trying to buy its way out of, recruitment these days. And so you just, you follow the money. And if you start to see people socking money away in places they shouldn't, and buying things they shouldn't, and buying stuff with cash, I mean, that's how you're going to find them, not by asking them about it. It's like drugs, you can look at behavioral indicators.
Right.
So I just think it's bad.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I just think that they're kind of, I think that they undermine morale. And I think that if part of what you want to do in an agency devoted to protecting a society, having those people be unhappy, having them feel persecuted and surveilled is not the way to achieve the best performance from those people. And so I think that procedures like polygraph bring about exactly the result you're trying to prevent, which is an incentive to defeat the system.
Right. It really contrasts with how just breakaway successful companies like Google treat their employees.
Exactly,
where
right?
You can take a nap, you can have a buffet, you can, we have sushi, we have a playroom, you can play in the sun. They really cater to them to increase productivity and decrease error, which is kind of what you want in counterterrorism.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, like, they pick you up at your house in the morning. You don't have to commute. And, they have great food that's subsidized. You pay a little. You can bring your dog. They give you massage. You can go exercise at this great exercise facility, and they aren't like, why aren't you working, right? But what they find, and I actually have a friend who works for Google, and she cracks me up. She's like, whenever I'm sick, I'm like, would I rather cook or would I rather have somebody else cook for me? So she goes to work whenever she's sick because she'd rather have them cook for her. It's like, that's the kind of, and so they don't get absenteeism, they don't get recidivism, they don't have, a lot of repetitive motion injuries, they don't get a lot of workman's comp, they don't get a lot of these problems that really, undermine so many of these other companies, precisely because they're willing to allow the kind of freedom that makes people love their job and want to work there and want to do a great job and go home and work at home. And, you're not getting that in the FBI and the CIA. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't people who don't work their ass off. I really think that they are. But I think that you would have increased morale, production, and performance if you didn't make people feel like you didn't trust them, which I think is what polygraphs do. It's a way of saying your boss doesn't trust you. And who's going to feel good about that? It doesn't work. So we should all work for Google. Maybe we should let Google do counterterrorism.
They've already got access to Gmail, right?
Exactly, right. Did a pretty good job with China and cyber attacks. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I am terrified that the camera has not been running this whole time because it hasn't beeped. We've still got tape. I want to go check it.
Is it supposed to beep?
Just when the tape runs out.